You do not need a ton of gear, fancy equipment, or 30 bottles to have an epic home bar. Actually, all you need to do is get a few things right and you are well on your way. Welcome to Home Bartending 101. My name is James Woody. I'm a professional photographer and cocktail content creator. And in this entire series, it's 5 parts. I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to have an epic home bar, whether it's just for yourself and you enjoy cocktails or you want to host people and be known for the most epic home bar. I got you. That's what this series is. And today we're going to start with the most basic of everything, which is equipment. And you do not need a lot of equipment. There is a lot of equipment out there and bar tools. A lot of them are really fun, but they are not essential. So today I'm going to walk you through the essentials of everything you actually need to get started in a home bar, because without equipment, you can't make a cocktail, even if you have the right booze and citrus and all the things for it. So it really breaks down to 5, maybe 6 things that you actually need. I'm going to tell you them all right now, and then I'm going to map them out exactly what you need and what your options are with each of them. You're going to need something to shake your cocktail in or something to stir your cocktail in. You're also going to need something to strain it out once you've shaken it or stirred it. You're going to need a vessel to serve that cocktail in, and you're going to need a device to measure the liquid before you make the cocktail. Other than that, you're going to need ice and you're going to need something to juice citrus with. So without any further ado, let's begin on what you need to shake a cocktail. Cocktail shakers come in all shapes and sizes. The most popular one you've probably seen, at least at a home bar, is this. It's called a cobbler shaker. It comes in 3 parts. It comes with the vessel itself, comes with a lid and a cap, and on top of this lid actually is a built-in strainer. We'll talk about that in just a second. This is the most popular piece of equipment for shaking cocktails at a home bar. This is another version of it. This is the one I prefer. I make a lot of cocktail content on Instagram and here on YouTube, and it's clear. And I really like when you can actually see the presentation, especially in a video, but this is the same thing. So this is a cobbler shaker. Your other option, which is popular amongst bartenders around the world, are shaking tins. This is actually my preferred method. I think it's a lot more efficient. It's also a lot more fun. These stick together and there's nothing like that crack when you shake a cocktail in one of these. And they are very practical, but they're very durable as well. And when all is said and done, all you actually need is something to put liquid and ice in, seal it up, and shake it. So if you're in a pinch or you just don't want to buy any equipment, mason jar will do. I know that sounds crazy, but this is essentially the same thing. It doesn't have any built-in strainers or anything else. But if you need to not get equipment or you just want to start making something right now, you don't have shakers, you can always use this. I've used a hydro flask in a pinch before, mason jar, but step 1, make sure you have something to shake your cocktail. And if you're interested in learning my whole list, everything I'm talking about here, so you don't have to write this down or memorize it, down in the description, I'll put a link where I will give you my entire list, where to get them and why I love each of these from all the categories. So number 1, get a shaker. The second piece of equipment you're going to need is something to stir cocktails. Cocktails can either be shaken or they can be stirred. So you're going to need a vessel to put liquid and stir it in, and you're also going to need something to stir it with. This is a bar spoon. It's an extra long bar spoon. I love using this to stir cocktails. You don't need a bar spoon though. I wouldn't recommend using a normal spoon. Those get a little clunky, especially with ice. So what I do, especially when I'm traveling, a chopstick works really, really well, or a metal or plastic straw. Those are the 3 things you need to stir. Something else to keep in mind, if you're on a budget or you just don't want to buy a lot of gear, these cobbler shakers, it's a vessel. You can use this as the vessel just to put your cocktail in and stir it. You don't have to buy a bunch of other things. Same goes for the old mason jar. I don't even like mason jars, but they work really well for all of this. And so the second thing you need, we said shaker, and you need a vessel to stir and something to stir it with, whether it is one of these beautiful mixing glasses. The benefit of an actual mixing glass is it has a spout, so you can strain it easier into your vessel that you're serving in. So that's number 2. The third thing you're going to need when making cocktails at home is a strainer. In the cocktail bartending world, there's 3 main types of strainers. This is a slotted spoon we call a julep strainer. This is a hawthorn strainer. This is the most popular strainer you will see around any bartender. And of course, you have this mesh strainer. You've probably seen this. This is like a mesh sieve or a strainer. This is get all those little particles out. And the reason there's different types is with stirred cocktails without any citrus, this will just do. You know, if you're just making an old fashioned or a Negroni, you don't need to capture anything. You're just holding back the ice. This is a little bit more extensive. It has this kind of grid on top of here that will get little particles of ice shards if you shake something. And of course, if you're doing something with citrus, it's not necessary. I kind of like the ice shards and some of the citrus bits in my cocktails. A lot of people don't, and that's why you use this. Use a method called double straining, which is using two strainers through. It just makes the cocktail a lot more clean. Now, something to keep in mind on these cobbler shakers, like I mentioned earlier, there is a built-in Hawthorne strainer, essentially, or a julep strainer. It's just slotted holes on top of this, and so you can actually pour directly from that. That's the biggest benefit of having one of these at home. If you are looking for your options, what I would say is grab a cobbler shaker that already has a built-in strainer on top, and make sure you have one of these mesh strainers if you're going to be doing a lot of shaken citrus cocktails, which I'm sure you are. They're some of the most popular cocktails in the world. And so make sure you have something with your shaking and pouring vessel to strain. And like I said, with the stirring vessels, it's really nice that these fit on top. And you have a spout. So if you do want a little bit more user friendly of a stirring straining combo, if you're not shaking a cocktail, get something with the spout as well. The fourth thing you're going to need is something to measure your liquids in, your ingredients. Cocktails are a lot like baking when it comes to that, is where you want to be pretty precise when it comes to the amount of sugar, the amount of citrus, the amount of booze you put in your cocktails, because that can completely make or break a difference, just like when you're baking something. And so the industry standard is called a jigger. It comes in all shapes and sizes. These are the two popular ones. Essentially, it's a two-sided measuring device. There's an ounce on one side, and there is a 2 ounce on the other side. And inside these, there's a half ounce and a 3/4 ounce. They also come in a 1 ounce or a half ounce, sorry, and a 1 ounce size as well. And if anything else fails and you don't have any of these devices, you can always use a shot glass. Just make sure you know the dimensions and how much liquid this actually holds. And the last thing you can always opt for is a measuring cup or a tablespoon. A tablespoon is half an ounce. Fun fact for the day. It takes a long time to measure ingredients for a whole cocktail with the tablespoon. So I highly recommend picking up a jigger. Just make sure when you're measuring, whatever you're measuring with, you are precise and you know what those measurements actually are. Also, when you are using one of these jiggers, make sure that you're filling it up to the very top if it calls for the 2 ounces or the 1 ounces, right to the top right before you pour it in. Because if you short it a little bit, the way these are shaped, it'll actually end up being more like 3/4 ounce or just shy. So make sure you're filling that up all the way. Coming in fifth of what you're going to need for an epic home bar setup is glassware. I love glassware. I personally have hundreds of different types of glasses, but that's over a decade of just building my collection. Let's break it down to the three essential glasses you will actually need. And we could break it down to even two if you don't want to have a lot of glassware. You're going to need something to serve cocktails up in, which means with no ice. And if you need to remember that, up, the glass is literally up on a stem. And you're going to need something to serve glasses on the rocks in, which is with ice. So remember, without or with ice is essentially the two glasses you're going to need. The third glass you would need is called a highball glass, and it's the longer version of a short rocks glass. And these typically come with soda in the cocktail as well, so you can have a little bit more liquid. It's longer of a drink, like a tequila soda, a ranch water, a vodka soda. Anything on those lines will be served in a glass without a stem, but it is longer and taller. You can get rid of this if you really need to and stick with a stemmed glass and a rocks glass. However, the third one does help, so you get a lot more liquid in it with the ice and the soda water. So if you're going to shake a cocktail without ice, served up like this. If you're going to shake or stir a cocktail, it is usually served with a rock or rocks in a glass like this. And remember, if you're going to serve a cocktail that has soda water in it, typically it goes in the highball glass. The sixth thing we need to talk about is ice. Technically, it's not equipment, but it definitely will drastically change the type of cocktail you're creating. Ice does a few things. It chills your drink, obviously. It also dilutes your drink, which means when you're shaking or stirring a cocktail, you're supposed to be melting the ice into your cocktail, which means that water needs to be quality purified water. So I have a whole nother episode I'm doing on ice, but what I will tell you right now is make sure whatever ice you're using, that it is purified. If you're using freezer ice from your ice maker, that's awesome. Just make sure you replace that filter in your fridge. My guess is you probably haven't in a while because it took me forever. Once I started doing this, I started replacing it every 3 months. You can grab the filters on Amazon, just look it up. You're good to go. Make sure your ice is purified and clean. And then one of the next episodes, I will go over ice extensively. The last piece of equipment, number 7, that you're going to need is something to juice citrus with. There are a lot of thoughts on citrus and how long it lasts and all of that. However, what really matters is if you have a home bar, you don't need to prep gallons of citrus. You need to make sure it's fresh and you need to make sure you juice it effectively. And so there are electric juicers, there are hand presses, there are all kinds of things. If you have a home bar, you have two options. Your hands, which works really well, especially with grapefruits and oranges and other things like that, or a hive strainer. These are just simple metal hive strainers. This is the most efficient way to juice citrus, and this is truly all you need. You don't need an electric juicer. You don't need anything fancy. Hive strainer and your hands will do just fine. Linked below is also an Instagram where I teach you how to use this very effectively at home. Those are the 7 pieces of equipment you actually need to start your epic home bar. You need something to shake, something to stir, you need something to measure your liquids with, you need ice, you need something to strain, you need a vessel to pour it in, and you need something to juice citrus with. That's it. If you have those pieces, you're already well on your way of having an epic home bar. On the next episode, we're going to go over all the bottles you're actually going to need to build your home bar. It's way less than you think. You need a few essential bottles of booze and some mixers, and you can make the majority of cocktails you want to at home and continue creating an epic home bar. If you like this episode, thank you for being here. Please hit subscribe. This is what this channel is dedicated to. If you want to learn more about hosting at home, I'm doing a series right now on this same channel, Hosting at Home 101. And in the meantime, if you have questions about cocktails or hosting, hit me in the comments. I am here, and I will see you in the next episode. Cheers, friends.